Stephen Avis, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it.
Me too, man. Tell me about, is it Wantu Wazori? How do you pronounce that?
Juan to Wazuri. Juan to Wazuri. Yes. Yes.
So tell me about your time in that club and the impact it had on you.
So that was my initial wrestling club starting there in Oakland, California. I had two older brothers that wrestled, my brother Norman, who was 2 years older than me, and my brother Jerry, who was 6 years older than me. Jerry was the first one to kind of get us started in wrestling. And then the high school where he was at, Oakland Tech, had the club, the One Two Wazuri Club. So me and my other brother Norman attended there. I believe it was only twice a week, but my memory so long ago. I want to say it was only twice a week, but started there. It was just a little gym in the at the high school there at Tech. Um, we just roll the mats out, and a bunch of kids would just go after it. It was wild, but that was where I began. Yes.
When did it hook you?
You know, to be honest, it didn't hook me at first. Being the youngest brother, I always got the S end of the stick, and um, when they introduced wrestling to me, that was just, oh yeah, great, one more thing they could beat me up at. So at first, it wasn't. I didn't take to it right away. I remember taking a break, quitting. I don't know if it was a month into trying to learn wrestling or what, but I remember quitting, and then I remember coming back. And I remember when I came back that it was more intense for me. It was important to me. It was um, I don't know if I could say it was in my blood all of a sudden. It got in my blood, and then ever since I haven't been able to shake it. So um,
What do you think changed on that break?
I don't know. I was 7 years old. I was a young kid, so I remember thinking I wanted to get into some kind of karate. I wanted to do some karate, but I don't know. I don't know exactly what it was that brought me back. I just know that when I came back, it was really important for me, um, and it was just something that I breathed on the daily. So,
Yeah, and everyone in the wrestling community remembers Jerry, four-time All-American, but your brother Norm was a state champion. How often were you guys scrapping during those days?
on the daily, on and off the mat. So it was an interesting time with him. He was my best friend. We did everything together. Um, and so wrestling was just that one thing too that we were able to connect with, and we worked out all the time. It was we were the same size, so I think that was very helpful. I mean, how many times we go into wrestling rooms and don't have a workout partner?
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice. It was nice to have him around, and we were both learning at the same pace. So it's just funny how it turns out that I became the offensive wrestler and he became the counter wrestler. That's just way it balances out like that.
But it wasn't always like that, or
I mean, ever since I can remember, I was the little brother trying to get it. So,
right?
I was pushing him, and I think at first he was just the big brother, like, oh yeah, yeah, whatever, little brother, and then eventually I caught him, and then he was like, oh wait, this kid's pretty serious. So
Wow.
yeah.
I remember Jerry coming on the podcast and talking about the breakdancing scene out in Oakland. And he used to incorporate some of that originality into his wrestling because he's like, in breakdancing, being original is everything. And so he kind of took that same mindset to technique. I don't know if you saw any of that, or were you around for those days, or were you too young?
I was young, but I do remember him breaking. I didn't understand it, the whole concept behind it, and the deeper meaning of it. But I've become a big fan of it growing up and through high school, having friends that break dance, and I've become a big fan of it, and paid attention, the whole respect thing, and the unique aspect of it. And when I heard my brother say that, and use that correlation of being unique, that made a lot of sense to me because watching him grow up, watching him wrestle when I was growing up, I saw a lot of unique things and things that I haven't seen before, and it was a really real big inspiration for me. And so that all made sense once I heard him make that comparison.
Yeah. Well, and everyone who thinks you thinks about all the different ways you could score and the the unique technique, and it's just when he said that, something kind of clicked, and I'm like, oh, things are lining up a little bit now. Where'd you grow up off the bat? Like, what was the home like? And were your parents athletes?
No, it was mostly just my brothers and my mom. Growing up, and grew up in Oakland. Jerry brought home wrestling one day. Me and my brother Norman were just kind of maybe hanging out in the living room. We used to play video games, and I just remember him coming home one day and said, "Come on, Norman, Steven, let's go in the backyard. We're gonna wrestle." And we pretty much did everything he told us to do. He was like, "Go climb that tree." Okay, we'll climb the tree. Go climb that house. All right, we'll climb the house. And so, on the side, he was kind of teaching us to be ninjas on the down low. We did everything he told us to do, and then one day he just brought home wrestling, and we jumped in the backyard and started getting after it. So that was the beginning of it up until then. And so,
what took you to Southern California for high school?
So that has a real big story, deep story. More involved with my mom and her being able to take care of me and my brother Norman. Me and Norman were getting to an age where we started to understand things. I believe I was 14 and he was 16, and so we decided we wanted to leave the home and move in with our sister in Southern California. And so in the 8th grade, that's when I moved down to Southern California, and I met up with a great family, the Blancos, who really took us in, and I think were a big part of our growth through the sport for sure.
So that was a big turning point for you guys to get a kind of a culture shock to get out of the East Bay and head down south.
Yeah, a little bit. We grew up in Oakland, so we're kind of used to the rough side of the neighborhood. And when we got down to Southern California, we were tested a couple of times, but I think they understood that we knew what was up. Mm-hmm. So they didn't really mess with us too much. But obviously with sport and wrestling, we get our brothers right away from the team, and went right into the whole system there. So.
And what are the tournaments I didn't realize you wrestled in? I think it was the Cadet Worlds, and it was like you, Cale Sanderson, and Joe Heskett were the medalists. And I'm just based on the timeline. It's got to be like high school time. So what memories do you have of that first international tournament?
Yeah, so that was back in '94. I was a sophomore. I had just finished my sophomore year in high school. And I remember the year previous, our teammate, Luis Blanco family I was talking about, went to the Cadet Worlds and he won. And that was the first time I had even knew that they had a world championships for 15-year-olds. And that blew my mind and automatically just gave me so much drive to try to get there. And that's what happened. The next world trials that came around, I was all over it, and I'm so excited to try to make the world team. And so I did my thing. I won the trials, and I made the team. I remember I actually have some old pictures of that team, and seeing Joe and Cale there and looking so young, myself as well. Just cool memories. That was the first time I ever wrestled somebody from another country. So that really was, I think, the beginning of my inspiration, because I felt things and saw things that I thought weren't possible, that I thought shouldn't work. And it really just expanded my mind. I think I lost my second or first match to a guy from India. And he just had this really weird stance. If we were in person, I would get down and show you his stance, but it was just really awkward and weird. He was kind of tall and lanky. And he ended up beating me, but I won the next few wow. And I came back and I won. I took third. Yeah, that tournament was awesome, just for the simple experience of wrestling someone from another country and feeling like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to do that. Like, why is that working? How are you? And it just blew my mind and really made me realize that there's so much more out there to learn, so much more. And that
I
was
love that just hearing that your friend went in 94 got you so excited just in itself. Like you were that excited about it from then.
yeah, I mean, I think there was a certain point, I don't know if it was like after my freshman year where I felt like I needed to be tested. Like, where can I test myself next? And to hear him go to the worlds, I was like, world championships? I could wrestle in the worlds? It was just really exciting for me. And I was like, I'm gonna make that team.
And
So
you had won a state title as a sophomore in high school that spring.
yes,
So you're
yes.
having a lot of confidence coming off of that, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Especially from California, knowing that it's one of the toughest states. Yeah, and I did it in a pretty good way with takedowns and um, stayed solid the whole match. I didn't waver much. So
Yeah. But so
yeah,
you go to the worlds, take a bronze, and even at this young age, you're already starting to break down and understand technique and really looking at what other people are doing there.
yeah. So making the world team was the first time us being able to go to the Olympic Training Center, and so we went to the Olympic Training
Wow.
Center, and we were able to work with some of the best coaches, but we watched video too, and I think that was the first time I ever really watched international wrestling. I was never like a big video nerd growing up, kid watching videos. I was just about doing it and learning from the coaches. Obviously, it's a lot bigger deal now with all the videos involved, but back then it was one of the first times me watching international wrestling, and I watched and I saw that the techniques they were doing, they looked so basic. They didn't look like there was any setup, and I was like, "What is going on? These guys are just shooting blindly. This is ugly." I was like thinking, "This is ugly wrestling. What is this?" But it was the highest level of wrestling, and now I realized that I was missing those setups. I was not seeing the little things that was going on for them to take that shot, the things that they could see and recognize, um, the little things that
Wow.
yeah, and
It's that detailed.
the details that I was missing at 15 years old. Now that I realized what was really going on, in those setups, and so yeah, and that was again, being exposed to that at a young age, and I guess being smart enough to understand it and realize that, hey, wait, what's going on? I think was a huge impact on my success.
That's crazy because like you have to have that much experience to see that other level. It's like a new set of glasses coming on. Like if you ever, I watch football once in a while and you'll hear Tony Romo break down a play. It's like he can see things that we can't see the whole time, and that's why it's like, man, I would love to sit next to someone like you to break down film. Cause I was actually
Mm-hmm.
trying to do it with yours. Cause I was watching all your matches yesterday and like you would right hand club and then you would kind of you'd shoot with your left hand to the high crotch versus the right hand to the knee. And I'm
Okay,
like, that's interesting.
so first it wasn't a high C. I call it the outside.
Okay.
Shooting with my left hand. I end up in a high C position,
Like a
but my left
crackdown.
yeah, but my left hand is attacking to the outside, and I call it the outside because my head goes to the outside, my knee goes to the outside, and it's what that does is it eliminates the defense. No longer does he have a sprawl or a whizzer. You shoot like that. So something that I've been teaching recently. It's one of my best shots. I call it the outside. And yeah, that little motion with the head, that's just a little setup. Just a
And
little
like you would
setup.
hit that, and then the left hand's free, just goes right to it. And it's like there's nothing in between. There's no defense, like you said.
Right.
Where'd you pick that up?
Well, it started with an idea. I think my brother told me one day that there was this guy from Oklahoma State, Alan Freed, that used to shoot single legs with his head on the outside. And just the thought, just those words coming out of his mouth made me think again, like, what do you mean shooting your head with down now? We're not supposed to do that. And so I tried it and I tried it again and it started working. And then I started doing it in a way where guys were just falling over. I'm like, whoa, okay, this is something here. And when I started doing it, some of the coaches like Kevin Jackson were looking at it and said, "Wait, what was that? What's going on? How'd you do that? Show us that one." And so yeah, it was just something, an idea that spawned into actual one of the best shots out there.
Would you go to the shuck if that wasn't working after that because you still had the right collar? or was it
Um,
not as connected?
well, that's the thing is if you leave your hand up here and you take that shot, you're off balance if you leave it up here. You gotta bring this down. So it's a committed shot.
Hmm.
If you don't get it, you kind of got to land in a strong enough position where you can recover. But basically, when I get this collar tie like this, natural reaction is for them to grab collar tie. So as soon as that arm's coming, reaching, I'm going.
Right, right.
And so it's a timing thing. But
You hit it against Batirov in the '03 Worlds, but off a reshot, man.
uh, that was a good match. That was a good match. You bring up his name, I get chills.
I know you're thinking '04. I'm thinking '03 though, where you had him in the
Yeah,
first round, and then in the quarters you had the dude who got silver up 5-0. It's like you were hitting that man. Like those
yeah,
weights were so deep back then.
yeah. It was a good year that year.
How old were you when you think Jerry said that to you about the head on the outside? You think you're
Um,
in high
I, I
school?
I think I was in college. I was in college. Yeah, I might have been young, like a freshman maybe. Yep.
Okay. And when you
Uh,
get to college, so you win 3 state titles, Fargo, you win the Junior Worlds. Um, I know I want to go back real quick. What was it like when you went to Moscow for the Junior Worlds? That had to be pretty
uh,
sweet to go to the motherland.
yes. Well, that was my first time out of the country. So to go to Moscow as a 18-year-old kid was awesome. Um,
Wow.
just the sights, the experience, the thought that I could say, hey, I was at the Red Square. Um, you know, if I think about it now, I probably wouldn't want to go back. I don't want to go back to Moscow. There's really nothing there for me except for maybe some cool wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but uh, but yeah, that was awesome experience for me. I mean, just saw a lot of crazy things. Like I remember the food. Um, they were trying to serve us food, and none of us wanted it. So uh, one of the parents went out to the market and found this old lady that was cooking chickens under the ground. And she was the old lady chickens. We gotta get where's the old lady at? Let's get the chicken. We were searching around the market for her. It was so funny, but yeah, that was a great first experience out of the country.
Did you guys take a trip down to like Dagestan or Chechnya at all, or did you stay in the Moscow area?
No, I think we just stayed in Moscow. Yeah. We're I don't think we weren't able to travel much. They keep
And
us.
you look at those rosters, man. Those studs on those teams. I mean, your teammates back then. I mean, Guerrero was a California guy, but it just all those guys were like, who were some of the guys on that Moscow trip?
Oh, let me try to think. Quinn Foster, I think TJ Jaworski, TJ Hill,
Wow.
um, Zach Thompson from Iowa State.
Okay.
Yeah, a few men I remember. Yeah.
So like you were one of the early ones doing the age group worlds all throughout high school. And I had heard you say in other interviews that you wanted to stay in California because you felt a certain pride to stay in California for college. And you end up at Fresno State with the great Dennis DeLito. Why is it that you've said in the past that the NCAA tournament is like the most exciting tournament you could go to or wrestle in? Like I've heard you say that in a few other interviews.
Number one, because of the fans. The fans know what's up. So when the fans know what's up, the energy in the room intensifies 1,000-fold. There's no energy like the NCAA tournament. I've been in tournaments all over the place. There's nothing like that place. To actually compete and to be on the mat and to wrestle against an Iowa guy where the crowd is against you. First time ever crowd has ever been against me, wrestling an Iowa guy. And yeah, all
Did
those
it get,
experiences.
is that with Jurgens?
Yes,
Did it
yes.
get to you? Like you noticed it?
I think it did. Yes, I was ranked number 2 in the country. I had one loss all year, and I wrestled Jurgens in the quarterfinals. The NCAA is my first year, and
That
he's ranked 6. I'm 2, and I remember the first time he took me down, and the crowd went crazy, and I don't know why I got so tired. The combination of Iowa and the crowd, the sixth man, got to me. I think it got to me a little bit. I think it did. I wasn't ready.
That
my first
quarterfinal
Iowa
round,
match.
that quarterfinal round in the morning is so crazy on Friday morning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you put a lot of whoopings on Iowa guys over the years, Strip Matter, Eustace, and yeah, that I forgot about that Jurgens match because that was down at 118.
Right. That was the first year they bumped the weight classes up to 25.
Okay.
So at the NCAA tournament, we weighed in the first day only. 125, first day only, no weigh-ins after that. And they checked our weight the next day, and I was like 127 or something like that.
That's
Right.
it.
Yep. And Jurgens came in at like 140. I was like, whoa. But
Wow.
yeah, that was the first year that they did that, and then I think after that they changed it. By my senior year, I was weighing in 3 times, once a day. Yeah, now at same weight too, scratch weight. My senior year sucked.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you have a hard time making weight?
I did. I was a little older too. I think I was 25 at the time. I had 2 redshirt years, so I was 25 at the time of my senior year. And I was cutting about 20 pounds, just about 20 pounds. I was on a
Wow.
liquid diet for 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, I was on a liquid diet. Uh,
No.
oh
Seriously?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And I don't know if that was like totally necessary, but that's what I needed to do to get down to where I needed to be mentally and physically. Um,
So what
so,
was your routine? Like a bottle of Gatorade in the morning or
oh no, it was those little meal packets. You put it in water, protein shakes or whatever. Meal packets. I was big on Advocare.
mm.
I was big on Advocare, so got I would do that, and insurers. We'd have a lot of insurers, and I was disciplined. I mean, I think about it now. I'm thinking like, man, I could never do that now. But the time you're focused and dedicated and goal driven, so I do it.
And I was gonna ask you when you're doing that kind of thing, from the technical side, it seems like you were really enjoying it and it was a process of discovery for you. Was there ever bumps in the road where you hit like a dip in motivation and you weren't as motivated to keep going?
There was a point my senior year where it was almost like I felt like I wanted to lose just so I felt alive again or something. I was going undefeated. I was undefeated the last 3 years, and it was like that was like crossing my mind. Like, what if I just lose? Would I feel better? What if I got hurt? Would I feel better? Things like that were crossing my mind. But I've had good coaches around me, and they were able to talk me through it and get my mind right. It was brief. It wasn't very much, and it wasn't often, but I had my moment, one moment.
You're thinking of one in particular? Or?
That one
Yeah.
I just talked about. Yeah, yeah.
Well, it's crazy because in '01 you go to the World Championship. So now you're at the highest level. You're at the again, the highest level, the NFL, if you will. But then you got to go back to college the next year. Like that had to be a challenge.
Oh no, it was exciting.
It
It was
was. Okay.
exciting for me. I was gonna see what I can do next. What can I do on this level now? I won. What did I win? 85, 86 straight is the number.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wanted to go out and dominate, right? And show the world what I've learned on the international scene. Um, that was I think always a big part of my wrestling is putting on a show. And that stems from Jerry. Jerry was the performer from dancing. He was the performer. Me, on the other hand, I was a had that in the back of my head, but at the same time, I wanted to win. I had a big drive to succeed and win. So
And when did your goals solidify on like the '04 Olympics? Like when did that become a reality for you that and you're putting plan into action to make a run for either 2000 or '04?
well, in 2000, I had my redshirt year. I had an Olympic redshirt year, so I left school for that. So I made a big decision then to try to make that team. I fell short. I think I took third or fourth. Fourth, I forfeited for third. Um, but those next few years when I made the first team in 2001, I've always made it a point for myself to be to be stable and persistent and uh, not falter. If I win a tournament this year, I got to win it next year. I can't. What am I going to place third next year? I can't. And that's why I always didn't understand how these guys would go to the NCAA's and they'd win and then they'd lose and then they'd win and they'd lose. For me, it was not a choice. I got to go win. That was my drive to just do better. So in 2001, when I made that first world team, that was the beginning. I was like, okay, now I gotta be here. This is my spot. And so when 2004 rolled around, Sam Henson decides to come out of retirement. He was retired for 3 years and the last Olympic representative. So it brought a little bit of nerves to me, but at the same time, I felt like my skills were way better than his. And I think it showed in the match, technically wise. I mean, he's super strong and he uses that quite a bit. Um, he was wrestling Teague Moore in the finals of that tournament in the trials. And remember, if you remember that match,
I don't remember
but
that one.
Teague was beating him. Teague Moore was my number one competitor throughout my career, and he's beating Henson in the finals 3-0, and there's like 30 seconds left, and they put Teague down, and Sam turns him. Sam turns him 3 times to win the match. So I'm sitting there in the stand, like preparing myself to wrestle Teague. I'm like, all right, I got to wrestle Teague, and then I'm watching this. I'm like, yes, I was so excited that Sammy won, just because I knew the styles would have matched up. So yeah, that was an amazing year that year. And so in 2004, just total confidence, got to make this team.
And man, when you talk about putting people down, so I watched the match when you wrestled Henson in 2000 at the Nationals. You were battling them, and they kept putting you down, which was, I didn't understand why. And then Henson would throw the double boots in, and he was like, that had to be one of the most uncomfortable 20 seconds for any wrestler, with Sammy Henson with double boots in. And man, he was tough there. And I think he might even turn you in 2000, just at the end of the match, though. But you guys were like even on your feet. And then in 04 at the U.S. Nationals, I think you were up like 3-0 on him, and they put you down, and he put him in and just ripping, man. So that's what happened to Teague at the trials?
Yes, do the double legs and did the gut that he does. Yep.
God.
And it's funny because there was a certain point where I figured that out. I figured him out, and he wasn't able to do that to me. There's a point in the trials, one of the matches, where he throws those double boots, and I just sink down, sit down. He doesn't budge me at all. So there was a certain point where I figured him out, and he wasn't able to use anything against me.
What do you think the biggest change in your game was from the 2000 trials to 04 trials?
Oh man, 2 national titles, and all that international experience wrestling. Wrestling with the men on the daily, going out to the training center, working with the best coaches. All those things combined with my attitude and learning and trying to get better every day. All that stuff, all that. It was all a positive experience, growth for those 4 years, making that turn for the team.
When did you move to the OTC?
I actually moved out there in 2004. That was the first time I moved out there. Right before, just to train for the year. So
like January 04 or like 03?
Yeah, I'm not sure the exact date. It was. I was there for a full year though. So just
is that when Sergey was the coach?
Yes. There's some. I have some thoughts about that.
Let's hear them.
Just, I mean, I'm wrestling the Russian in the finals, and our head coach is brother's head coach over there, twin head coach. They must have talked about me. I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to be a Russian coach in the room with us. I mean, we've competed with them forever, and yeah, times are different. We're diplomatic, whatever. It's nice to get an experienced coach. I remember when Sergey was in there, he didn't show me much. Like he tried to show me an arm spin. An arm spin. Yeah, that's a deep old Russian move. But he was like, he didn't have any like specific learning or teachings for me.
And is it true
I
when you
don't.
guys went to Eureka, he didn't coach you?
Yes. Yes.
How,
Yeah.
like,
So
what
you
was the
heard right.
situation?
I didn't even pay it much mind. Like, oh, he doesn't want to sit in the corner, whatever. I didn't take it offense. I didn't even pay it much mind. I didn't even realize it until somebody pointed it out. Like I thought that maybe he's got some other business somewhere else. He's behind the scenes or behind the tables or something doing other stuff. And then when somebody pointed it out, I was like, hey, wait a minute, that's not right. So it's amazing that he was there my year. That's but
So
yeah,
you were
those
fully in the resident program, like a resident athlete.
yes.
Who was the other guys in the resident program at that time?
I can't say there was any guys that were on the team that were living there except for me.
Oh wow.
Yeah, everybody else was coaching somewhere. Right, I think Eric was in Oklahoma. They were all in their other schools, most of their training. I think I was the only one that made the full time move there to get ready.
Yeah, I think Full Heart might have been out there, but that's it. Was he out there?
Okay.
Yeah, because he
Yeah, he
took
was
Kale
there.
to 3 matches, but
Is that what he told you? Yeah, I remember he was the one guy to beat Kale in a stretch of 10 years or something.
right.
Yeah, and
And
when we made a point, those times we make a point in the room, the coaches tell us, you can't lose that match. You can't lose a match at the Worlds. That means you're out. You can't lose that match. And so we made it a point. I mean, even in the trials, 2 out of 3, you can't lose that match. And so, yeah, when he beat him, it was like, wow.
crazy.
Kale's a champ. Came back and did what he's supposed to do.
He had a crazy draw, but so did you at the Olympics, man. Your pool round, you took out the world silver medalist and the world champ. Like
Yes.
that's a death pool.
My first 2
Crazy.
matches. Right. Right. It's funny because we're right after weigh-ins. Zeke Jones comes over with the brackets, and he goes, you want to hear your first 2 matches?" And usually I don't. Usually I'm like, I don't. Nah, I don't even want to know. He's like, you got the Cuban and the other guy that you beat, Moldova. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just laughed. Like, really? Oh my gosh. Okay. And I didn't trip out. I didn't fret, didn't panic. It just again cleared my mind and focused like any other tournament.
The
I
Cubans
stepped
are
up on the
so
mat with
tough.
those guys. Oh yeah.
Dude, those lightweights, and people forget that in 05 you went up and took out, was it Quintana
Yes.
at
Yeah.
133? Like, so
Yes.
you've put some L's on the Cubans, but that I was just talking to him or who it was about how good the Cubans were in the 2000s. Like they had some great teams, great freestyle teams during that time.
Mm-hmm.
So did you wrestle the Cuban first or the Moldovan first?
I wrestled the Moldovan first. Yes. Yes. And then the Cuban second. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that Cuban, he scored on me quick and took me down and turned me. He was up 3-0, and I couldn't even break his defense. I remember after that first 3 minutes going over to the coaches, and I've never said this ever in my life. I said, I don't know what to do. I told Kevin, I was like, Coach, I don't know what to do. And Kevin almost sounded like he didn't know what to say because he never had that said to him before. So he stood up and he goes, well, you just got to bang him. You got to move him. You got to bang him. You got to move him. And I was like, okay. So that was it. And I ran back out to the mat and I did that. I started putting my hands on him, turned the heat on him. And sure enough, he started to waver, fell down. So I told Jackson that story last year at the trials when I saw him. He totally forgot about it. And I think he was happy that I reminded him that he got me through that match. Like just saying those words to me was enough to get me going.
And you turned that dude with like 20 seconds left.
Yeah, there was like 10 seconds left. Yeah.
Wow. Was it
yeah.
really? Oh man.
Yeah. That last takedown though, I just kind of level changed and pulled on his arm a little bit. He just fell down.
Yeah, he hit a wall,
Yeah, he
man.
did. He did.
Wow. And then so after
He,
that, you go ahead.
he was just kind of known for that. I think he would hit the wall and
Had you
turn it up
wrestled him
on
in
him.
like the Pan Ams or the Worlds at all?
I wrestled him in the Pan Am finals. Yep. Went to overtime. Went to the clinch. That's when we had to lock up in the clinch. Went into the clinch. Went into overtime. And when I beat him there, that's why they didn't send him to New York for the Worlds, because I beat him there. And they're like, well, if he can't beat the American, why would we even send him to the Worlds in New York? So they
Seriously.
so they didn't send him that year. Yeah,
Wow. They don't play.
they don't play. Well, I mean, yeah, they got no
Money's
money.
tight. So I'm trying to think how the Olympics was. So you had the two pool matches. Did you have your quarters match in the first day of the Olympics as well?
I think the quarters was the next day. I want to say it was the next day. Um, I remember one thing about the Olympics is that something I never did before was those ice baths.
Mm.
But after my match, they were amazing. I felt like my body was brand new. I was so refreshed for my next match, and I would do it after every match. So it was really awesome. Um, but the quarterfinal match, I wrestled the got Chinese representative, um, and I remember dumping him for three, hit him like a three point double. Um, One thing I was paying attention to as the tournament was going on was the score. I remember looking at the scores, and I believe I scored 7 points in each match. I was like, seven, 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 seven. All right, seven. Lucky number seven. Let's go.
Yeah.
Until my semifinals when I won 3-0. Um, but yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking about while I was wrestling out there.
That you want to put up 7 on each guy?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. What was like your first impressions of the Olympics, the village, the opening ceremonies? Like what did it meet your expectations?
Oh well, when we first got there, we were there a couple of weeks ahead of time, and we actually trained at a separate site. We were at a different site, and we didn't even go to the Olympic Village until maybe 2 days before we competed. So it was towards the end of the Olympics when
Oh,
we
wow.
went down to the village. Yeah,
So you're not in there like the whole 2 weeks. You're at the
no,
separate place.
we were at a whole separate for just our team. It was just our wrestling team, the boys and girls.
Mm-hmm.
We had our own cafeteria, our own gym, our own mats, everything, our own hotel, all off the side of where the Olympics were. Um, but when we got to the Olympics, like 2 days before, it was awesome because we go in and just these huge 4-story buildings everywhere, and they take us to the cafeteria, and the cafeteria has every food from all over the world. Each country has their own little station. So it was I like food, and I was trying stuff from other countries, and a little goat from Jamaica, and a little try this, let me try this. And so that was like one of the most memorable things, the cafeteria, like all that food, so many athletes walking around. And then at night, they were partying. Like we had our tournament. We couldn't party with everybody was done with the Olympics. They were done, and they were out partying and hanging out of their balconies, waving their flags and just chanting and just having a great time. And I think that was when we got the true Olympic feel there when we got there. Um, and so we went to the wrestling room, and there was a big factory or whatever, big giant building, and had about, I don't know, 50, 60 mats down, and each mat was curtained off. I was thinking, I was like, what? They got these curtains, each country, so you can't see what the other country's doing. Like, okay, okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So we weren't ever, I mean, we went there to go like lose a few pounds, last minute pounds and get a little quick workout, but the tournament was about to start. So none of the teams were there. It was only just guys scattered around trying to make weight. I I went into I went into the locker room where the saunas were, and I see this fool Batirov with four coaches around him, holding him up,
No.
holding him up. He's dead. Like he's I don't know how long he's been in the sauna, but he's butt naked. And these four coaches are holding him up, like we were walking in the shower. He's like in the shower, and they're like walking around with him. And I walk in, I'm look at him like, dude's hurting.
Oh.
And I remember like the year before, I think our coach was telling us that he has a hard time making weight. So when I saw him then, I was like, man, dude's hurting. He's not even make weight. I'm like, And so I remember feeling great. Like I started doing the intravenous, the IVs, but like the nationals that year, and then the trials, I did it again. And then when I got to the Olympics, I had done it so good that I didn't even need it. I didn't even want it. I didn't even want the IV. I felt so good. My body was just, I just did it right, and I was focused and ready. So
But you saw him. So like this is like the day of the weigh-ins, and like you walk in there and you see
the
him
day
just
before, yeah,
day before.
the day
Imagine
before,
sleeping that night under that
I
condition.
know. Oh, I couldn't even imagine. But you
Oh
know,
my
they gave him
God.
something at the end of the day. They gave him something.
Oh yeah.
That stuff that can't be traced.
Dude, I was looking going down the rabbit hole of Basit Kudakov, who I love to watch. I love his technique. I was
Skills.
crushed that he was killed, but I was crushed that he tested positive. Like in 2017, they retested all the samples from London, and he tested positive for like a really like blatant anabolic steroid. Like not even like anything on the sneak, you know. So they let him keep his medal because he had passed away. But oh man, and then you hear that maybe they were being forced to take it, maybe they weren't. Who knows, you know? But I'm sure in 04 that stuff was going down. If it was going down in 08, I'm sure it was going down in 04.
Man, the how fresh he looked the next day, I was like, what? You were about to be dead in that sauna. I saw you try to.
Wow.
Yeah, he looked super strong. He beat the world champ. The next day, he beat the world champ.
Damn.
Yeah.
So he didn't. Man, that was a crazy quad because you guys had a different champ every year, right? A world champ from 01, 02, 03.
Yes, yes. Two was the Cuban. One was the one of the Belarus. No, not Belarus. One of
I
those
think it
countries.
was Belarus.
Was it Belarus?
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Belarus was 01, Cuban, and then another Russian country, uh, Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan wanted in three, and then
Was it Mansurov? Was it?
nope,
Because he
nope.
came after that.
He was the same weight class, but there was two guys there at that weight.
Wow.
And the other guy was a little bigger, a little stronger. Um, yeah. And then Batira beat him like second round of the Olympics. They were in the same pool.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and for him to be dead to beating the world champ the next day, I mean, come on, dude.
Man, we had Putin in the closet or something. We
Putin,
don't.
yeah.
So you go to the finals and you wrestle Batirov, take a silver medal. And I was reading some articles that you had done like in October, November that year. At this point, so like October 04, you're dead certain of coming back in 08. And 05, you move up a weight class. 06, you have your first ACL surgery. What was that process like going through those injuries and trying to get back?
Well, for the longest time, I've always said that I was going to wrestle till my body gave out. And that was really my first big injury. I wasn't ready. Mentally, I wasn't ready for that. So I couldn't just quit. I felt like I had to, it was an accident. There's no way that should have happened. And so, I was in rehab for a year and a half, or no, a year. I tore my ACL and my LCL. So the recovery process was long. I remember the rehab being long, but uh, when I was all done, said and done, I had the opportunity to go back out to Colorado. So I did that, and I felt like if I was ever gonna try to make that team again, that's where I need to be. So I moved out there, and I was on the mat for about 3 months. 3 months until I was wrestling with Kendall Cross one day in practice, and he tore that same ACL in my right knee with his famous high gut. My ego was telling me that he couldn't turn me. And so we went back out there after practice. After practice, I was like, "Hey man, you can't turn me," and uh, and he broke my knee instead. so
Whoa.
so being there at the Olympic Training Center was very beneficial because I had all the best doctors and all the best rehab right there on site. So I was in surgery the next day. They put me in. It was good to go, and so I rehabbed for the next 6 months there at the training center to get ready for the 2008 trials. About two, about month and a half before the trials, this high school kid comes in and tears my left ACL, and
No.
that's why I had that big brace when I was wrestling in the finals in the trials there that year. ACL gone in my left knee.
Dude,
Um,
I didn't realize the one happened. I knew that you'd retore the first one, but I didn't know the other one happened. So a high
mhm.
school kid, just some random thing or what?
Yeah, just moving like he's not supposed to, doing something he's not supposed to.
Right.
Uh, I
What
was
was
at the,
the sorry, go ahead.
I was just towards the end of practice, so
Man.
yeah.
What was the resident program like under Terry Brands?
Um, I don't know. I don't know. I can't say it was any different. The intensity was the same. We're working hard every day. Um, other than his antics, personal antics, coming in the room with his speedos on, stuff like that.
It came in with the Speedo on?
Yeah, he's trying to get his workout, man. But yeah, yeah, he's an intense guy, and I think he really took to Henry. Henry took to him too. Uh, so
Why do you say that?
well, I remember Henry even thinking about retiring unless Terry was in his corner. So I know they made a huge connection that year, and I think he really needed him in his corner to succeed. So I know they made that connection. Yeah.
And did you work out with Henry when you were at the OTC?
I did early in his career. Towards the end, we didn't work out much. One match we decided to wrestle, and he shot a low single and laced me out of bounds like 5 times. And so I got up and left. I was pretty upset about that. Uh, and then the next day he calls me out again. The ball's on this kid. He's like, "What's up, Abbas? You want to go again?" like no, no. Oh, I'm all right. But no, I didn't work out with him too much. That was the last time.
And you guys were going full go when the first match happened?
Yeah, yeah. He shot a low single, and I guess I didn't react like I probably should have, but I fell right into the lace. How that low single goes, you fall right into that lace there, and he
Yeah.
was roll. Yeah, yeah.
Wh-
I didn't feel like I needed to give him any more ammo or any more mental juice. Uh, let
That's
him.
funny. He asked the next day to go again.
The next day, I was like, "Oh man, that I've never done that. Nobody's ever done that to me. I don't remember anybody ever doing that to anybody else." And 1 and 2, right? The number 1 and 2. Yeah. Well, one year with Teague Moore was the number 2. I was the number 1, and we're at the training center. It was a training camp going on, and we were partners that day. Never again, never since or before or after. But it was clinch day, and we're going into the clinch, and he was just throwing me all over the place. I could not score on that clinch for nothing. Practice. He's whooping me up. And so we end up wrestling in the trials that year, 2002. And sure enough, we go to the clinch. And I know he's so excited. But the way the rules were and everything, like if you didn't lock up right or if somebody bent over, they're always blowing the whistle and saying beep, 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 or whatever. And so they eventually just put me down. I was like, I'll go down. I don't want to lock up with this. So that's what happened.
I saw that match actually on YouTube. It's out there. Yeah, it was like it just seeing all that nonsense around like locking the clinch and the one guy's backing out, the other guy's not. It's just such a bad look for wrestling. I'm so glad the rules are how they are now.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the leg clinch was worse, but that was the body clinch.
Yeah.
So when you look back to that '08 series, even though you were banged up, how did you won the first match, right? Or the second match you won?
Second match. Yeah, won the second match.
What happened in that match?
Well, the first match, I remember taking a shot and I should have got two, but they went 2-2 with it. We end up at the very end of the match, he's in on a single leg, and I got this deep whizzer tight. And there's no way that I've ever lose this position. I got this whizzer tight, but I remember looking up and relaxing. Never, ever lost focus ever like that, and relaxing, and he limped on and took me down to win the match, to win the first match. That was how the first match ended. So the next match, I remember just feeling calm and almost like that first match was a fluke. That was my mentality. Like, he shouldn't even beat me. Like, that was my confidence going into that second match. I don't remember what the score was, but I think I beat him by a few points.
What was his like style and feel like at that point?
I can't say. He was fast. He was flexible. That's really all I can say. I remember watching him in the Olympics that year. Got up every morning at 2 a.m. to watch him wrestle. And he would get away with some things because of his flexibility and because of his speed. I watched. I saw what happened.
Wow. So even after the fact, because I had read that you knew going into the trials, even if you won, you were going to leave your shoes on the mat because it was your last time wrestling in the States.
Yeah, that was my plan. I think about that now. I'm like, man, did I mind F myself there and tell myself I'm going to lose?
Right.
But yeah, that was kind of the plan, because people don't do that unless they lose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing I wanted to ask you about is just kind of more in general about wrestling is, you know, a lot of parents listen to this show who have never wrestled, and they're trying to understand how to help their kid and get better. Like, what was your like biggest philosophy to like growing and learning? Like, was it something you focused on daily and went into practice intentional about? Like, what was your philosophy about improvement?
I think initially it's all about fun. That was the one thing that my older brother kind of instilled in me at a young age, to have fun. And so I used that as kind of my base. But then my desire to get better, my drive to learn, was what propelled me to win as much as I did, to be as successful as I was. And winning a title didn't mean that I was the best. Winning the title meant I got to get better. I got to win the next title. And so that was my drive, to always learn, always try to get better, no matter how much I win, no matter who's in the practice room with me. I'm going to get my work in. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to get better. That was my base and my mentality.
And were you someone who was into visualization?
Yes.
Tell me about that. I love hearing about visualization.
Oh yeah, and I think that was instilled in us early in Wantu Wazuri.
That
yeah.
early.
Oh yeah. Just winners never quit, quitters never win. Chanting this in practice. It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. Those things like that, like, just inspire me to try to get better and learn and grow. I just know that there's other guys out there that got some skills. So I'm like, man, let me learn that. I'm watching Satya move, like, whoa, what is that? And so, he was a big inspiration as I hit the international scene. And as people see me wrestle past 2001, they start to see that Satya flow.
Wow, I didn't know that. I love Satiev. His slide by. He won the 95 Worlds against Leopold with like 4 slide bys in the finals. Just boom, boom, boom. I'm like, I was never a slide by guy. I don't know. I don't have the feel for it. But to watch him do that on command, oh, it's unbelievable. So what'd you pick up from him?
I picked up his overhook takedown, where you step behind the leg.
Okay.
and it's one of the most effective moves, and you catch guys slipping bad. I seen him do it to a Cuban, and Cuban fell on his face. He barely touched the dude. And this is a World Cup. Like, this is the best Cuban. He just made him fall on his face. So
Wow.
I was blown away by him when I first saw him in 2001. I was blown away, and it was funny. I asked for some video. I was like, "Hey, man, you got some video on that guy? Let me watch that move he's doing."
Wow. Joe took him down that year, I think.
Yeah.
In 01.
Uh-huh.
Freaking blast double. So you got, I forgot about, there's so many things I didn't get to ask you about, which we'll have to hit on another time. I have to run in 3 minutes, but
Yeah.
dude, 01, you make your first world team. Are you at Colorado Springs getting ready to take off when 9/11 happens? Or like, how much delayed were the worlds that year?
No, yeah, I was at home when the news hit. And then we got the conference call from the coaches saying that we weren't gonna go. And I remember telling them, I'm like, man, I trained my whole life for this, and we're going to Iran, the best country in the world in wrestling, and I'm
But
gonna
that's
go
02,
anyway.
isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because 01, it was delayed.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, so if the
yeah,
worlds are normally in September, I'm like, you guys had to be like a week away from leaving.
right. We postponed it to it's like October or something.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so crazy. Because like a couple guys, like I think Kale he was on the team, then he bowed out because it was like during the college season. So it's like the whole world championships just got moved out. Like that's a crazy time. And then like you said, no, too, it was in Tehran and we didn't go, right?
That's right. That's right.
That
Yes,
had to be
everyone gonna
brutal.
go.
Like, what was that hearing that news?
Yeah, when I first heard it was in Iran, I was like, "We're not going." But then Kevin Jackson convinced me to wrestle and claim my spot again. And so then after we made the team, then they were like, "Oh yeah, we're not gonna go." And I was like, "I'm gonna go anyways." and uh, man, I'm going blank with his name. A longtime coach from Iowa State,
Bobby.
Bobby, was like, "I'll go with you, Abbas." I was like, "All right."
Man. Well, Stephen Abbas, man, it's been a pleasure and an honor to spend this hour with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Any last words before we sign off, sir?
Thanks, Ryan. No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. I think world saw a little different side of me today, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Thank you.